Wow, I never thought I'd see the day. Milei actually won. I tried to phone it in yesterday and say something about Milei because it's like, oh yeah, there's that election today, but I didn't think he was going to win, so I didn't really. It was hard to be enthusiastic. It was hard to have hope, because the polls, the very fake polls, said that he was going to win the first round of the presidential election because they have a two-round system, jungle primary type of thing like in Louisiana or California, or I guess France is the other good example. And Milei was supposed to win that according to the very fake media polls, and then he didn't. And so I thought, oh god, if he's underperforming the fake polls, then things are probably not going to look too good for him. And I did not, to be fair, look at any of the polls for this runoff election. I just didn't want to get my hopes up. And then he ends up with 55% in a country that has been ruled by the left since the end of the military junta, which was nominally right-wing because it was the military, I guess, but they didn't do anything like good. It's not like they were, to my knowledge, anything that I've read in history, that they did anything that helped the country more than what, what's her name, Isabel Perón was doing. I think she was, is that who they overthrew? Was it Isabel Perón, the junta? I believe that was Juan Perón's second or third wife. But anyway, there has not been much in the way of good leadership or good governance in Argentina in anyone's lifetime. The place has been on a downward spiral since the 30s, as I went over yesterday. And so really anything could happen here. Milei could be an extreme success, and he could usher in a new era in Argentina, which is what I hope happens. On the other hand, though, the rest of the government could stonewall him. They could sabotage him, and he could end up being blamed. Him and all of his ideas could be blamed for, I guess, the next 4 or 5 years of continued poverty in the country. And of course, when you are starting from a very bad position, things are not just going to get better overnight. It's not like you tune in 6 months from now and everyone in Argentina is going to be living in a gold-plated palace. Things are still going to be bad for years to come, I would think. But if he's able to, with his main promise to get rid of the peso and to dollarize, at least the inflation problem should be taken care of. And here's the thing: if you have an inflation problem, you can't deal with anything else. So you have to deal with that first. You have to end inflation. You have to abolish inflation, and then start abolishing all of these useless government agencies, which in the short run, I don't know how much that'll really help him. I mean, in the long run, it'll be great for Argentine society to not have a ministry of subversive artwork. It would be great if Argentina didn't have, a Ministry of Education run by satanic communists. I just don't know how successful he'll be, because even though, in something that he's been criticized for here in America, actually I'm getting my words a little bit jumbled up here. It's hard to process a lot of this, to be honest, because I've never been in a position where someone who I actually agree with, like, on everything, for the most part, who shares my ideas, at least, who shares my same sort of intellectual background. I've never been in a position where someone like that has ever won anything of significance. I talked about the Prince of Liechtenstein briefly yesterday. Yeah, he's one of us. But again, he's the Prince of Liechtenstein. It's a little different. It's not like being elected the leader of, a large country. Milei's an ideological ANCAP, and he's now going to be the leader of a large country with a very large government. He campaigned on taking a chainsaw to the government. I mean, he literally paraded around with a chainsaw. People went to vote for Milei dressed as Chainsaw Man. And so it's not like, Milei is some secret ideologue, who agrees with us in private, and says something different publicly, but, in private he's like, no, man, Man, Economy, and State, that's a really cool book. No, this is stuff he talks about publicly. This is his platform. This is who he is. But anyway, I wanted to get back to, I wanted to address some of the criticisms I've seen of him. And I'm not here to just defend the guy, because he hasn't done anything yet. I just don't want to jump to criticizing him prematurely when, again, this is the first one of our guys who's ever gotten into elected office. That's a big deal. No one has ever been elected a leader of anything. I don't think they've been elected to city council campaigning as an anarcho-capitalist, campaigning on abolishing the state. But again, I wanted to get criticisms. Foreign policy. Jackson Hinkle has highlighted all of the issues in which Javier Milei overlaps with, the U.S. CIA and State Department. Apparently he's, and I'm just taking Hinkle's word for this, pro-Ukraine, pro-Israel, anti-China, anti-Venezuela, a bunch of other stuff. I might care about that if Argentina was some kind of foreign military power like the United States, if Argentina was going to be able to play a role in world events, but they're not. And so those sorts of foreign policy issues, when you're talking about the president of Argentina or a candidate for president of Argentina, all that does is sort of signal who they want to be friends with. And a country in the Western Hemisphere, or a leader in the Western Hemisphere, who wants to take on the left in his country, it just sort of makes sense from my perspective that he would want to strategically align himself with the United States and have the U.S. like him and be his friend. I don't think that Milei wants to worry about the CIA assassinating him because of what he says about Israel or Zelensky, because what does that have to do with his country anyway? It's not like Argentina is going to be sending over arms to Ukraine or building bombs for Israel to drop on the Palestinians. And so if he pays lip service to the American foreign policy agenda, if that helps him in his cause and he'll have a stronger position in the region, I don't take offense to that because it's all talk. And as far as Venezuela is concerned, Venezuela, I think, is going to be a very strong foil for someone like Milei, just like it was for Bolsonaro. It makes sense to position yourself again, on the opposite side of a country whose leaders are politically the polar opposite of yourself. So again, these are not, it's not like Argentina is going to invade Venezuela. So I don't care. The reason why I criticize people who are like big Venezuela hawks are because their goal, in the context of American politics, is to get America to intervene in Venezuela, which I think is dumb and stupid. And that's why I think one of the first, it might have been the second video I ever put up on this channel, was making fun of Juan Guaido. I think it's pathetic when, Americans tried to prop up Juan Guaido. But if the president of Argentina was trying to prop up Juan Guaido, would I really care in the same way? No. Would I still think it's silly? Yes. But from that perspective, I can kind of understand. Okay, you're trying to suck up to the Americans, and it doesn't really matter what you say on this issue anyway, because your country has nothing to do with what's going on in Venezuela. And so what it comes down to is not so much what Milei or anyone else says. It comes, it's a matter of do they want to be friends with the U.S. and Europe, or do they want to be friends with Russia and China? That's all it is. It's a game. And Milei, since he's running on dollarization rather than just, say, a gold standard, I assume because dollarization is probably easier to implement in the short term, it would make sense that he would want to ally himself with the United States um, to a certain extent, to be friendly to them. He doesn't want to end up like Venezuela, who gets cut off from the global dollar system and suffers massive financial consequences. He wants Argentina to have a strong financial future, and if that means being somewhat married to the United States, then so be it, because there really isn't much of a downside. They don't gain, Argentina doesn't really have anything to gain from strain or undermining, American deep state foreign policy. Just because I, as an American, don't like the CIA, doesn't mean that someone in Argentina has to care about the CIA. I understand why someone in Argentina wouldn't give a damn one way or the other and would just sort of go along with whatever is in their own interests. That is, that's just the nature of having different nations. People have different interests. People are going to align with different countries based on what makes sense to them. But I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt in this area. If things don't pan out domestically, and he's not just sort of repeating American talking points on foreign policy for the sake of maintaining a good relationship with Washington, in order to further the domestic agenda that he campaigned on, then I would change my tune. And I would start to think, oh, okay, well, maybe he's just a NATO shill after all. Maybe he is just a puppet. We'll have to see if he actually produces results. And so the results that I would be looking for Milei to achieve is the abolition of the peso and the replacement of the peso with something that the government cannot inflate. So whether that is the US dollar, gold, some sort of cryptocurrency, that's the first thing. The second thing would be the abolition of government agencies. The winding down of government agencies. Reduction in the national budget. I would say reduction in taxes, but I don't know how high taxes are in Argentina. I don't know much about their tax structure. I don't know if they're just in a lot of debt, and that's how they pay for their welfare state. I'm sure now that Milei's won, I will probably start following the situation in Argentina more closely, and I will bring myself up to speed with what they've got going on. And then lastly, I would look for an expansion of civil liberties. So a repeal of any hate speech laws, loosening of restrictions on gun ownership, a tightening of restrictions on abortion, a rollback of environmental laws directly related to climate change, because that is separate, very separate from traditional environmental protection. You've got traditional environmental laws that say, hey, you can't pour toxic waste into a river because then that pollutes the water supply, and that affects other people. Then you've got climate change laws, which are gobbledygook voodoo magic. So these are all issues that Milei has raised, and I would take sort of a victory on any of these issues as a sign that Milei is following through. But considering he was able to win on what is the most radical campaign of my lifetime in any country, I would have to think if anyone's serious, it would have to be this guy. I certainly take him much more seriously than Trump, whether that's Trump 2016 or Trump 2024. I can't remember if I mentioned it yesterday, but I saw someone who summed this up pretty well, describing Milei as Ron Paul with the temperament of Donald Trump. And if that's the case, then we're back. Then the West is not dead yet. If Argentina can become the new bastion of liberty and essentially be better at what America was supposed to be than America is, if Argentina can become the new shining city on a hill and lead not through force but by example, then we might be able to turn our civilization around. I have not been rooting against the West these past few years because I hate the West. I've been rooting against the West because the West has been dominated by the worst among us. If there is a resurgence in the West and we start to promote leaders who represent the best of what the West can be, well, then obviously I would want the West to succeed at that. I would like to see us go back to a golden age, reminiscent of the pre-World War I era, the second half of the 19th century. That's when the West was at its most innovative. That's when the West was its most vibrant, its most free. That was when we saw the greatest increase in the standards of living across all Western nations. And so I'd like to return to an age like that where our civilization is advancing year after year, not declining. So with that said, for one day, even if it's only a day, I'd like to have some hope. And with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.